Hey guys, welcome to the channel. I hope you enjoy this Manhwa Recap. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks. The Baskerville family's hound, Vakir Van Baskerville. This man spent his life loyal to his family and his patriarch. But still, he was falsely accused and charged of treachery. And as such, he was sent to death by guillotine. Vakir pledged himself that if he were to live again, he would live a life of a predator instead of a hound. And all of a sudden, his wish is granted. Vakir wakes up again, but this time, he doesn't know where he is, and his body feels heavy, and there's very loud surrounding noises. He must be unaware that he is a baby, and assumes that this is hell. We are introduced to the first setting of the story, the Baskerville Grand Estate. In the room, we see a lot of babies crying as the patriarch Hugo curses at all these annoying brats. He paces back and forth, wondering if all these children are trash. There isn't a special one among them, but after this leaves his thoughts, he gazes upon Vakir, noticing that he's quite quiet despite all of the commotion. Hugo orders his men to move the children to the cradle of swords, and Vakir's eyes boil with rage. This is the man who sentenced him to death. He's connecting the dots, and this must be the younger Hugo, so this situation must mean that he's regressed to a baby. We get some backstory on Vakir, and he was born from an illegitimate family within the Baskervilles, and didn't get the best training or resources, and spent his life working as a hound. The hounds must be devoted to their missions: assassination, reconnaissance, threatening. These are the people who do the dirty work of the family. But because of this pack of loyal servants, the Baskerville family rose to prominence, and is the best of the 7 families. The reason Vakir was loyal was simple. He only ever wanted to be acknowledged by the family. 10 years after the gate to the demonic realm opened, the fight against the demons ended, with humans becoming the victor. And the reward that Vakir received for working his whole life was to be put down, all because he knew too much. He clenches his little baby fist and vows to himself that he'll change the story this time. He wants to take revenge, but now it's pretty difficult to be in the body of a newborn baby. But he thinks the Cradle of Swords will be a good opportunity to become stronger. The Cradle is a trial that every newborn of Baskerville goes through. The kids are thrown into a maze of swords. Wait, what? Did I read that right? Can someone call child services? Excuse me? And after they get through the maze, they enter the Styx River to be examined for talent. The river has special properties and turns the bodies of mere children into iron. However, there is a limit to how many children it can affect. Vakir needs to be the first to bathe in the holy waters, and will need to exit the maze as fast as possible. Something he wasn't able to do the first time around. But now Vakir will take all of the river's blessings, all for himself. As he dives into the river, it shocks all the onlookers. Vakir sinks and feels the water seeping into his wounds and cuts. His body urges him to go up for air, but he wants to endure as much as he can. Hugo's men begin to worry and race to try to get the child out of the water, but Hugo just laughs and asks Barrymore how much time has passed since the child dove into the water. 7 minutes, sir. Hugo stares deep into the depths and orders the boy to come out now. Vakir hears his voice but still wants to absorb as much as he can until the very end. But just like that, his little lungs give out. He tries to endure, but his consciousness starts to fade. Hugo is impressed by this young lad and pulls him out of the water, noting how Vakir even drank it. How greedy. He also notices that he already has grown teeth, something that usually doesn't happen for the first couple years. Hugo asks for the name of this child, and he is informed that it's Vakir Van Baskerville. Hugo smiles since it seems that he has a very greedy son, but Vakir hardens his resolve. He will use every last second alive in his new life to make sure the Baskerville family will disappear and just become another tale in history. Vakir grew up as a bastard, and at 8 years old, he was talented enough to be considered a genius. But compared to the family, he was only ordinary. At 20, he took on assassinations, espionage, and conquest missions. And at 29, he reached the pinnacle of swordsmanship. At 30, the demonic realm opened up, which started the beginning of the demonic invasion. At 35, he survived through the onslaught and killed countless demons. And at 39, the war came to an end. And at the age of 40, Vakir was rewarded with death for his life service. Vakir wakes up back in his bed and wonders where he is. He rolls back and forth, happy that he absorbed the Styx River. And because of that, he has a much better starting point than before. A woman with a blue chest places it inside Vakir's bed, noting the weird request that the madam requested. Vakir overhears his attendant's complaints, and all of a sudden, a mysterious aura oozes from the box. 2 snakes appear that alert Vakir. Bloody mambas? Vakir tries to analyze the situation. Did this so-called madam send these vipers here to assassinate him? him? Only a few women in the family can be associated with that name. Whoever it is, she's probably trying to reduce the competition. The two snakes begin to charge, and Vikir notes that an ordinary baby would be no match. But he is not ordinary. As he grabs both of them by the neck, he squeezes the life out of these two vipers, vowing to end this corrupted family. The next day comes and some attendants are shocked to see Vikir sleeping peacefully next to two dead vipers. All of the nannies that night were executed after torture, but Hugo is still unable to find out how those vipers appeared. Only Vikir knows the truth. We time skip to about 8 years later, and Vikir is sitting in class, and today they're learning the levels of swordsmanship. One, unable to imbue a sword with mana, is a beginner. One who can imbue mana slightly is an expert. One who can completely envelop their sword is a graduated. And lastly, someone who can completely manipulate the shape and size of the aura is considered a sword master. Hugo, the strongest of the Baskervilles, is considered a sword master. Vikir sits uninterested in this lesson, still plotting on how to regain his powers. The teacher notes that Vikir is not paying attention, but he knows that that boy is unlike the other kids. He grasps things quickly, and being in the Styx River for 7 minutes has gifted him a strong body. The Patriarch should be happy with his progress. Vikir is 8 years old now, but he's still counting the days until he will be strong enough to kill Hugo. We shift to a blonde-haired kid trying to bully Vikir, calling him garbage. The boy and his two lackeys start harassing, and Vikir remembers these three. They stabbed him in the back while he was trying to escape his false punishment. They were called Hugo's Trident. We're introduced to these triplets, whose names are High, Middle, and Low. They are all 9 years old and only seem to share one brain. A knife is put to Vikir's throat, but all the while he just thinks it might be a good idea to put these bozos in their place. High seems to be the leader of this bunch, wants to test a rumor that Vikir's body is made of steel. Low gets behind Vikir and grabs him holding his mouth closed, seeing how long he can hold his breath. 10 minutes pass by and Vikir is still unfazed, leaving the boys shocked on how long he can hold it. They immediately let him go, saying that they're not having fun anymore. But Vikir won't let them off that easily, as he bites off one of Low's fingers, making him scream in pain. Vikir smiles, asking what's the matter. They lost a bet, didn't they? Two of the boys said they aren't scared, but Low ruins that flow, saying that he just got his frickin' finger bit off. This guy's crazy. The brothers tell him to calm down. They will go to the priest to put it back together. But Vikir just asks who is letting them leave. High grabs a knife, wanting to know who Vikir thinks he is. They are his older brothers after all, and tries to pierce his stomach, but is shocked to see his blade cannot pierce his skin. Vikir grabs the punk's arm and tells him age means nothing, and they should play for a little bit longer. The brothers scream in horror. The rumors were true. As Vikir starts beating them, the boys start crying in fear, but Vikir tells them not to worry. They will be healed after this. So for now, he won't let them leave. Vikir picks up the knife that High dropped and tells the boys he is so nice. He will let one of them leave. The three boys are trembling in fear, wondering which one of them can escape. But Vikir hands them the knife, saying that only one of them can survive. But don't take too long, I'm quite impatient. He closes the door and the three boys begin to stare at each other, as they all know that their lives are now at stake. We switch back to Vikir and some fighting is heard in the other room, and just like that, the famous Trident of Baskerville was dissolved. We shift to Barrymore, informing Hugo that there was a bloody situation. The Morg clan is claiming that the ruby mine is in their territory. Hugo will wait until the Morg clan makes the first move, and asks the man if he has any more news. He tells him that Vikir scored the highest on the juvenile exam. Hugo is pleased and asks when the practical exam is scheduled, and it's in about 5 days, and all of the Guardian Knights have made their preparations. Barrymore has another topic. There was a fight between the triplets. Although there was no casualties, all three of the boys have sustained critical injuries. They have recovered, but the mental toll has become too great. Hugo is confused since they would never fight amongst themselves, but Barrymore continues that it was a result of them fighting the young master, Vikir. Hugo is surprised and orders Vikir to visit his quarters. The Patriarch gets right to the point and asks why he disabled the triplets in his senior class. Vikir doesn't understand why he is so serious. They should have been healed. But Hugo continues that it's not a physical matter, but a mental one. The three won't go anywhere near each other anymore. Their combination technique was pretty good, but now the relationship is in shambles. Vikir just continues smiling, and Hugo asks if what he did was wrong. But Vikir just says that he doesn't think so. How can the stronger person be wrong? Hugo says the brothers came forth and already forgave him, but still, you don't feel any ounce of guilt? Vikir laughs at the word forgiveness. In his past life, the youngest daughter of a family that was ruined by the Baskervilles came to visit, saying that she too forgave Hugo. But Hugo's response was forgiveness is an excuse by the weak who cannot seek revenge. And without hesitation, he reiterates these words. This makes Hugo's eyes light up as his interest in Vakir continues to grow. He agrees, weakness is a sin. Only the strong will survive. And Vakir has done well to understand the family motto. He tells Barrymore that Vakir is allowed to take any snack he wants from the food storage. Only that on which he can carry. Vakir just happily asks for chocolate and turns to leave. But Hugo tells his son that he wishes him luck on the interim exam. And don't lose to the direct descendants. Hearing affection from Hugo makes his skin crawl, but he plays along. In the food storage, Vakir goes towards the famous chocolate that is enjoyed by the Yormans of the Morg clan. It's the highest quality chocolate available, but Vakir doesn't want actual chocolate, but rather the cacao beans. Barrymore is confused, but Vakir is handed a bag of bloody beans, known for the rich aroma. One bean can produce 100 liters of chocolate. Vakir eats one and is visibly disgusted, but Barrymore just assumes this boy must really love chocolate, but notices that within the restrictions that were set, Vakir found a way to have virtually unlimited chocolate and is impressed with his brilliance. The chef asks if the boy wants the beans processed and sent to his room, but he declines, saying that he wants the actual beans themselves, leaving Barrymore even more confused. But Vakir's plan is not to eat the chocolate. The bloody beans will be used during the practical exam in 5 days. Vakir smiles because on this day, a catastrophe will happen, one that has never occurred in the clan before. The name Baskerville derives from the term Berserker family. The children of this family are put through an early education of martial arts. Once they are able to take their first steps, they are forced to run up a mountain. When it's time to sleep, they are forced to sleep next to a monster's corpse. When this testing ends, they are about 8 years old, and now all the young hounds will start their deadly evaluation, their survival exam. It takes place in a mountain in the outskirts of the territory, filled with monsters, called Le Rouge et Le Noir Mountain. And don't ask me to say that again, I'm just saying mountain. The instructor is Pavlov, and he starts explaining the rules of this exam. The children will need to survive in the mountain for a month and hunt large and strong monsters. There will be a point system. Survival is 10 points, and surviving without being disabled is 30 points. Failing another young hound and surviving is 50 points, and surviving after defeating a monster is 70 points. If someone completes all of these conditions, they are awarded 90 points. The only other way to gain points is stealing badges from other hounds. Dying will result in 0 points. Vakir remembers Hugo's lesson. A swordsman dies the moment they become arrogant. Pavlov continues that he advises the young masters to only go to the designated area. The mountain has many undiscovered places, and it's smart to only hunt monsters that have been prepared in the spaces provided. During the exam, each hound will have a shadow dog hiding and grading them. Some boys begin chatting about Vakir, asking if all the rumors about him are true, but he sits there silently thinking that it's been a while since he has been here, and in front of him are the triplets who are desperately trying to avoid his gaze. Pavlov tells the boys that when they hear the sound of this bell, they will start the exam, and wishes them luck. The bell is sounded and everyone disperses. Some try to get a good area within the designated zone, and others team up targeting other hounds. The triplets move together, but their chemistry seems to be poor. Pavlov takes a chat hit of his cigarette, while we find out that killing others isn't exactly forbidden, but discouraged. If you kill another hound, points will be deducted, so everyone will try their best not to kill anyone else. He wishes his shadow dogs well and to keep the casualties to a minimum. The man in charge of Vakir is watching him walk to a restricted area, wondering where the hell he is going. He knows that Vakir is a genius and is excited to find out how he handles this exam. Vakir approaches a giant dead tree, wondering if this is the spot. He decides that he will live here for the time being and wonders if he should take a break. A break? The shadow dog is confused. All the other kids are busy fighting and slaughtering monsters, but Vakir is building himself a hut and relaxing the day away. He notes that all the boy has been doing for the next couple days is resting and digging some sort of hole, and he only really hunts for food and other materials. He wonders if the rumors about him are fake, and if he's just going to hide. There's no reason to watch him. And as he leaves, Vakir smiles, because now he knows that he's alone. Camping reminds him of the old days, and we see a flashback of one of his friends informing him that bloody beans have a high concentration of cacao, and they taste the best. Vakir puts the beans into the fire and is happy that his observer is gone. It's time to start his hunt, as we see a shot of all the traps that Vakir has laid, pretending to lounge around. A few days later, inside of the restricted area, Vakir is searching for a particular thing that he knows is around here somewhere. He notices the smell and burnt tree roots and is sure that he is close. And finally, he finds a burning poop. He's hunting a hellhound, as we see a shot of this enormous wolf covered in flames. The beast opens its mouth and starts charging energy, and we get a system prompt of the hellhounds that live in this area, and we're informed that they have a risk rating of B+. It's been a while since Fakir has fought one, and in his past life, he couldn't stand up to one of these creatures until he was 18. He is 8 at the moment and still can't really fight him head on, but he has a plan that would allow even an infant to kill this monster. The hellhound charges in, and Fakir thinks about its first weakness, is that the beast only moves in straight lines and has trouble changing directions as Fakir slides past it. The hellhound's second weakness is not being able to cross water, even if it's only a little, as he splashes a line of water at its feet. Doing this slows down the hellhound significantly, and if it moves this way, it exposes the weakness that all canine monsters have, opening their mouth while running. Fakir dodges the attack and flicks a bloody bean into the dog's mouth, causing it to fall over. It seems that chocolate is poisonous to all dogs after all. Normal chocolate would have not done the trick, but a bloody bean can make 100 liters of chocolate, and it has a devastating effect. Fakir laughs that even dogs of hell can't survive after a little bit of chocolate as he draws his sword. He begins dissecting the monster, and the only area not protected by its hard ribs is its kidneys. He pierces the beast, putting it out of his misery, and collects its energy, that is called XP. Once you kill a monster, this accumulates inside of your body and enhances your traits. Now Fakir notices that his sword has gotten lighter, and at this rate, he'll be able to catch up to his previous strength in no time. He wonders what kind of reaction Hugo will have when an 8-year-old brings back a B+ risk monster. Fakir has his eyes on a special book that he would have never dared to ask for in his past life, but now he might just be able to get his hands on it. He moves to take the monster's head, but is alerted to footsteps behind him as 2 more hellhounds appear. Fakir is unworried since he didn't plan on just killing one anyways, but before he can attack, an immense wave of bloodthirst is felt, causing the monsters to cower in fear. This confuses Fakir since these monsters would never submit even if it meant certain death. But he turns around to see a 3-headed beast, the Cerberus. Sweat drips down his face. This is an A+ risk rated monster. This isn't its normal habitat. So what is it doing here? Fakir notices that it's bleeding as it charges at him, and he assumes that someone is trying to hunt it. Across the mountain range is a tribe of barbarians, and he figures that this beast ran away from them, and this might be the best chance he has to kill such a high-rated monster. He needs to defeat it no matter what. Fakir has been hiding his true strength, and even the fact that he is a sword master, and he has full mastery over the Baskervilles' 3rd technique. He's at a stage that the young hounds would normally be at as an adult, as he coats his sword in aura, and rushes in at the monster, slashing its head. And after several strikes, his confidence grows. Before he regressed, the demonic war taught him not to have any unnecessary movements. All of the skills Fakir learned from his 40-year-old life are coming to fruition, and he's tearing the Cerberus apart. Or, that is what he thought. Unfortunately, life is not that easy, and the moment Fakir let his guard down, the beast struck him, breaking his sword and flinging him into a nearby tree. He coughs up blood and the situation is dire, and the last panel we get a snapshot of a description of the Cerberus. Fakir lost his consciousness but woke up soon after. He was hit with a powerful blow and still feels pain in his left arm. He wonders if it was ripped out, but looks over to see, and it's only been deeply cut. It's useless for the time being, but Fakir is actually pleasantly surprised. Even though the Cerberus is wounded, to only have deep cuts after being struck by an A+ risk monster is unheard of. Is this the true power of the Styx River? Fakir has a newfound vigor and dodges the charge from the beast. Just because he got lucky once, doesn't mean he can withstand another hit. It's going to be a hard battle, but an experienced hunter must find a way to win. The best thing he can do now is run away. As Fakir is running, he thanks the barbarian tribe for wounding this beast. If not, he might have been dead already. He sees a fence and knows that just past that is his campsite, where he prepared all of his traps. He needs to evade this beast for a little longer, and he's pacing desperately looking for a spot. The Cerberus is inches away from having a meal, but Fakir spots his tent and is running towards it. At the very last second, he jumps into the air right before the monster can close its jaws. It steps into one of his traps and Fakir lands on his back, but welcomes his foe to his version of the Cradle of Swords. Fakir regains his composure and is shocked to see that his traps are actually working on a Cerberus, and he is quite happy. At least this strong monster is the same species as the one he prepared for. He coated the blades with the bloody beans, and it should be slowly draining the monster's life away as we see it cough up blood. Even so, Fakir knows it won't die that fast, so he prepares a poisoned spear and hurls it into one of the monster's heads and begins to count. The Cerberus rises from the trap, and when Fakir counts to 7, the Cerberus falls over. dead. Fakir is happy that the rumor is true. He laced the spear with the bloody mamba's venom, and it's said that no living creature can walk more than 7 steps after being bit. All of the XP from the monster rushes into Fakir, but he wonders how he will carry this back. The cause of death is obvious, so maybe the Guardian Knight will vouch for him since he saw him prepare all the tools. But there's something else Fakir must do. Cerberuses are usually gatekeepers that protect territories, and it must have been guarding a nearby dungeon. Dungeons are mysterious places that harbor treasure, and some powerful monsters use them as a lair. Since the gatekeeper is dealt with, Fakir can go and reap the rewards. He begins covering himself with the monster's feces, and he does this to discourage any smaller monsters from bothering him. He starts backtracking the beast's trail, and shortly after he finds the dungeon. He remembers this place in his past life, and it was only discovered years later, but when it was already empty. Right now, however, it's not the case, and he can sense mana underneath the rotted surface. It hasn't been cleared yet. Fakir can't see any light and wonders how deep this actually goes, but smiles in excitement to see on what treasures await him. Fakir is traversing through the cave and sees veins of ruby lighting his path. He notes that it must be connected to the Red Owl Mountain, but all of a sudden he sees an ominous room with a red light and a pedestal holding a large ruby. Mana is emanating from it, and he also notices a skeleton right beside him, letting him know that someone tried this before him. Fakir inspects the dead man and reads a letter beside him. The man in the letter calls himself Cain, and Fakir notes that the handwriting is Baskerville and continues to read. The man in the letter is writing so future generations do not make the same mistake that he did. The stone chamber has been talked about as a legend for years, and Cain, alongside with his brother, stumbled upon this dungeon. They killed many monsters and completed many trials, and it took them 3 years to get to this room. Fakir is intrigued that this stone must be very valuable. He looks at it and there's instructions. When entering, it's 1, but once inside, it's 2. When leaving, it's 1. Cain and his brother contemplated over this ominous text for a long time, but came to a conclusion. They were twins and came out of their mother's womb, but after birth, they became 2. However, the text wrote that they must become 1 again, and that meant that only one of them could leave with the treasure. After the fierce encounter, Cain killed his own brother, but despite all this struggle, there was still no change. The pain from killing his brother for nothing caused him to go mad, and after days of regret, he decided to leave, but left this letter as a warning. Nothing of value can be gained in this devil's den. It only serves to tempt humans. Fakir understands the story, but he doesn't have a twin, and the assignment is still the same. It must mean that the 2 brothers misinterpreted the texts. Fakir has to think. No dungeon is unbeatable. He looks at the skeleton corpse and laughs to himself. Cain and Abel were unlucky. Since they came down here together, it kept them from seeing the real solution. The dark passage in a contrastingly bright stone chamber. The answer lies in the dungeon. When entering the room, he is 1. But when the ruby's light shines, it casts a shadow. Thus he becomes 2. Fakir breaks the stone with his hands, causing the light to vanish. And now he has become 1 again. The answer is shadow. Fakir smiles as he completed the trial, and he sees a relic of this dungeon, a demonic sword. It reads that only those with Baskerville blood will be able to wield Beelzebub. The name sends shiver down Fakir's spine. He never knew this legendary sword originated from down here. He only saw it in picture books from his past life. The gluttonous fly, Beelzebub, that invaded the continent in old legends and was one of the 7 calamities. In order to stop these demons, the seven families stepped up, and the calamity the Baskervilles fought was Beelzebub. The remnants of this demon was hidden within the land, but his energy is said to have lured monsters. The legend is many years old, so no one believes it, but here Fakir is, overlooking the remains of this calamity. Fakir does know that that legend was indeed true, and this sword was used by the demon clans to kill thousands of humans. But it won't happen this time. Fakir grabs the sword and makes it his. A dark red aura fills into Fakir's arm, causing him to reel in pain. The sword reappears as an extension of Fakir's arm, and he's amazed to receive a blade made from a corpse of a great calamity. Exploring this cave was definitely worth it, and he smiles, wondering what heights his power will reach in this life. Fakir is satisfied and moves to leave the cave, but all of a sudden, he's overwhelmed and drops to his knees. What is this feeling? This intense hunger? The blade from his hand is pulsating, and Fakir wonders if this is how it's asking for something to eat. He manages to walk outside of the cave, but this insatiable hunger is unbearable. He notices a heightened sense of smell and can sense something close by. The blade extends, pointing Vakir to follow, and they go to the corpse of the hellhound that he killed earlier. The blade extends into the monster and is absorbing the beast, and Vakir starts to go back to normal. Beelzebub must have been starving for a long time. The boy wonders if all the dead trees and dry soil in the area is a result of this thing's hunger. Just how much will he have to feed this binge-eating disorder? Beelzebub finishes and retracts into Vakir's hand, and we get a status screen showing one of the abilities that it has gained. Hemorrhage Hellhound. This must be its ability. It is said that it can steal the attributes from the prey that it eats, and how much it can absorb is infinite. He reads the skill and it allows him to cause intense bleeding, even from the smallest of cuts. Vakir gets an epiphany, and if he can steal abilities, what about the Cerberus he took down? We shift to that location, and Beelzebub is excitedly trying to devour the monster, but Vakir tells him not to eat it all. He needs some proof that he actually killed it. Vakir sees the blade not listening to him and smacks it on top of the head, telling it to stop. But he gains two more abilities: burn injury and high speed regeneration. The second one confuses him, but he sees a sewer rat crushed under the Cerberus, so this must be its ability. And hold up, how does a rat have this insane ass ability? It's what? Whatever. Knowing he's done more than enough, Vakir hides out until the end of the exam. The evaluation begins and rewards are handed out based on what the young hounds have achieved. But one hound stood out, since no one could have believed a monster of this caliber was slain. We shift to Hugo, questioning who killed the Cerberus, and was informed that it was Vic, who had accidentally went to the restricted area. Hugo is impressed. Usually Guardian Knights tend to avoid those kind of risk monsters, but Barrymore informs him that it was heavily wounded. Hugo continues to question how Vakir got his hands on a poison strong enough to kill it. Barrymore doesn't know the answer and has nothing else to report, but Hugo is still quite happy in his resourceful son. Knowledge is power. Power is your worth. Barrymore is shocked that a Van would be so powerful, especially not being a direct descendant. But Hugo tells the man that he doesn't discriminate like the previous patriarchs. It only matters if they have skill. It means royal bloods can be dogs, and those from the Van family can be elite. Hugo summons Vakir and asks about his achievements. Vakir says he put chocolate on his spear, and he explains the weakness those monsters have. And Hugo finally understands why he chose chocolate from the food storage. Barrymore is just left in awe. This can't be a normal father-son conversation. Hugo asks Vakir why he didn't give more details about his hunt to Barrymore, but Vakir simply responds that he doesn't need to answer to someone who isn't his master. Hugo asks who this master is, and Vakir responds that it's only the Patriarch. Hugo is impressed, and as a reward, the monster he hunted is granted to him, and one wish that he desires, since he scored the highest in the exam. Vakir tightens his grip in excitement and asks Hugo to allow him to go to the 10,000 epistle library. This library is one of the largest in the entire empire, and is located in the heart of the clan. Hugo questions if the boy knows that only top-ranking members of the family are allowed to enter. Vakir thinks he'll be shot down and says he's gonna have to find a way to sneak in, but shockingly, Hugo allows it, and even encourages him to read the Baskervilles' 6th technique, located in the restricted zone. Vakir is perplexed. Is this the same Hugo that he knew, letting an illegitimate child read the 6th technique? He remembers from his past life that those with a Van in their name never rose higher than the 4th technique. No need to get too excited though. The 6th level is not something he wants to stop at. In his past life, Hugo mastered all 9 of the techniques, and Vakir hasn't forgotten his quest for vengeance. He will obtain the greatest book of Baskerville, one that houses the techniques to subjugate even the 7 great calamities, and it will be even sweeter if Hugo is the one who gave it to him. Vakir thanks him for his kindness and is sure to exceed his expectations, but curses him in his mind for his arrogance. Vakir approaches the library, and this is the first time that he's ever been there. He starts browsing books, and these are all the ones that he wanted to read so bad in his past life, but they were all locked away in here. No matter how talented a Van was, they were never allowed to learn anything above the 4th technique in order to ensure the pure bloodline. Vakir finds the book of the 6th technique and unlocks it, and he never would have also imagined in this life Hugo would allow him to read it so soon. In the past, Vakir learned 1st through 4th technique inside and out in order to try and grasp the 5th, but he was never able to. Baskerville swordsmanship, depending on its stage, is referred to as a tooth. When one draws teeth, a red sword energy appears. Vakir skims through the book, but is still curious on the real reason that he came here. He goes towards the exit, shocking the guards, wondering if he needs anything else. But Vakir says he's finished what he needed to do. He will go read some other books in the time being, going to a section that the guards believe is useless. Vakir leaves them to their thoughts and ventures forth to find his hidden treasure. And after some searching, he finds it, a book titled A Lurking Ambush. A book on the basics of the 1st technique that purebloods don't really read, and due to some pages is considered useless. but Vakir knows its true worth. Before he died, one of his squad mates found a relic in a dungeon close to the mountain. They found a single page inside of this coffin, a page of Baskerville handwriting. Hugo was amazed by it and scoured the whole library to find its match. This book was thought to unlock the 10th technique, and Hugo crazily shifted the family's focus to finding the 6 other pages, and even going as far to declare war on other families. And after the death of many hounds, all the pages were completed, and Hugo broke through the 7th technique straight to the 9th. But this time, Vakir won't allow him to pointlessly send his brothers to death. Vakir is one of the ones who recovered all of those pages and memorized each of their contents. But since then, he's never had the original book. He still wasn't able to pass the 4th technique. So, to other people reading this book, it seems jumbled up and random. But to Vakir, it all aligns and makes sense once you fill in the blanks. And once it's complete, it turns into a masterpiece. Vakir vows that before he turns 15, he needs to regain the power that he once had before he died, and master the 4th technique. Hours pass and Vakir has had enough, noticing that he focused for almost an entire day, but he's memorized the entire book, but can't feel the presence of the Guardian Knights. Vakir knows that his young body has limits and still wonders if he can achieve the 5th technique. He closes his eyes and within his mind he stands opposite a blue figure. He unleashes the first, slashing the figure, and then the second, third, and fourth. He reminisces on his old life and his setbacks made by being mocked by his peers, not being able to conquer this barrier. But he won't let it happen again, as the blue figure resembles an old Hugo. Vakir unleashes the 5th technique and feels a burning sensation from his stomach. He's so happy at the fact that he's already ahead of his past self, and at record-breaking speed. An 8-year-old boy was able to draw the 5th tooth. Vakir likes his progress, and as long as he has enough mana to support it, he can unleash his new skill. He notices his mana capacity has went up as well, and he has improved from a sword expert to low-caste graduator. It took him 30 years to reach this point. Though his swordsmanship is not quite on par with his old self, nothing can stop him now from reaching the 10th technique. He's learned 2 new moves, Piercing Fang and Lurking Ambush. Vakir thinks if he puts his mind to it, he can even face a mid-level graduator, and thinks to himself that he would have a 100% success rate with an assassination and 50% fighting head-to-head. The only issue now is how much of his strength he wants to show Hugo. He needs to give the man something to look forward to. While Vakir prepares everything he needs, he proceeds to set fire to the book, erasing it forever, with only he knowing its true contents. The guards smell fire and ask Vakir what's going on, but he pretends that he was sleeping and left his magnifying glass around the book. The guards are relieved that don't think too much about the book and was glad it was just a useless one. Vakir asks them if they're busy with the Morg clan regarding the ruby mines. There's no time to be worrying about a small problem like this. The guards vow to keep it a secret since they were supposed to be watching him, and Vakir agrees and apologizes again. He takes his leave and the 2 men are happy on what a kind person the young master is turning out to be. Vakir returns to Hugo and the Patriarch asks on what he learned, and Vakir teases him saying he's learned something sharp yet soft and viscous, and he felt something like that. This shocks Barrymore and Hugo, and they think there's no way this kid had learned to use aura. Aura is the entryway into the world of the sword. Even geniuses have to train non-stop until the age of 15 to reach this low-class sword expert level. Hugo calms himself down, and what can this 8-year-old really do? Asking him to show on what he's learned, and Vakir obliges. We shift to the dueling ground, and it seems Hugo unleashed a monster for Vakir to play with. A very hungry one at that. Out of the gate emerges an orc, a sea risk-rated monster. All of the fellow kids are worried about Vakir. This has to be too much. They release the chains off of this animal and it roars menacingly and starts charging at Vakir. He stands there calmly and with one stroke of his sword removes one of the orc's arms. Everyone, including the orc, is shocked, and quickly Vakir lunges down to remove one of its feet as well. Vakir notes that the orc must be in shock due to bleeding this much. His B-class skill Hemorrhage negates the orc's passive regeneration ability. All of the surrounding children can't believe how strong Vakir is, but he knows that this isn't enough to please his father, so he'll show him a taste of what he really learned, and coats his sword in aura. Barrymore and Hugo are taken aback seeing the young master use Aura Blade, and Vakir uses his new power to finish off the orc, making Hugo almost jump from his seat. Barrymore is convinced that Vakir is at least a low-class sword expert, and is astonished that the bloodlines produced such a prodigy. But Hugo begins questioning why the orc is bleeding so much despite its regeneration. Hugo just says that that orc is weak, and Barrymore wonders why this man can't show his happiness. But Vakir interrupts, asking if they have anything stronger than an orc. Hugo smiles and is happy with his son's appetite. He tells Barrymore to release the barbarian they captured not too long ago. This menacing creature hasn't been fed in some time, and they bring it out. Even Vakir is surprised to see a troll. Vakir asks his father if he can start right away, and Hugo allows it. The boy dashes in and the troll tries to punch him, but he misses his small frame. His defenses are tough, this fight won't be easy. The boys around don't understand what Vikir is doing, but Hugo does. Trolls' regeneration is much stronger than orcs. If you cannot deal a lethal blow, it might be wise not to strike at all. The crowd sees Vikir barely dodging each strike, and it seems this is an act that he's putting on. He's hiding his real strength, and he could easily slay this beast, but doing so would make his strength suspicious. A good method in this situation would be to use the troll's strength against it. Vikir dashes in and slices the monster along the neck, and the troll falls on both knees and tries to stop the bleeding. The crowd starts to believe that this is too much for Vikir, and the troll's wound regenerates. Vikir doesn't want to use his hemorrhage ability, and Hugo says Vikir doesn't have to continue, but the boy is still determined to kill the troll. He continues his act, saying that he'll reach even greater heights if he fights just a little longer. Vikir coats his sword in aura, and his entire goal for this fight is to make it seem like he enlightened himself to the next stage, in the middle of an intense fight. He prepares a second technique and is excited to see Hugo's reaction. He draws a second fang and destroys the troll, and all the onlookers are completely taken aback. History was written. The record holder for the fastest mastery of the second fang was 18 years old, but Hugo just witnessed an 8-year-old boy doing it in front of his very eyes. Vikir shakes his head, pretending to be surprised, but Hugo has sweat dripping down his face. Just how strong is this boy? 1 week passes and Vikir is seen in the mess hall, still not enjoying the slop that they serve. All the other hounds are now avoiding him due to his sheer strength, but Vikir just chuckles. It was fun to see Hugo all flustered. The strength Vikir revealed was a medium-rank sword expert who has reached the second technique, but in reality, he's a low-rank graduator who has reached the 5th. And after absorbing the troll, he's probably even stronger than a normal graduator. Vikir, however, noticed that ever since this parasite attached to his arm, his appetite has almost been insatiable. All of a sudden, the triplets approach Vikir, but he doesn't seem to be pleased. But he's shocked to hear the boys actually praise him for his achievements. Vikir instantly wonders if they're trying to trick him and vows to punish them later, but I just think he has trust issues. Barrymore sneaks behind him and informs him that he needs to visit Hugo. We see Hugo meeting the Morg clan head agent, Adolf Morg. They're discussing the joint training that the two clans participate in every year, but get into a disagreement since last time there were several injuries. The two men's aura flare up and they're natural rivals. The Baskervilles are natural rivals of the Morg clan, since the Morg clan is made up of magicians to the Baskervilles swordsmen. These two weren't always neck and neck, however. The old emperor once said that the two skills were complementary, and as such, the two houses proceeded with the joint training. Only children between 8 and 15 usually attended, and it was held in good faith. But ever since this dispute with the Ruby Mind, it's gotten more intense. But due to the Emperor's orders, the training must continue. Adolf isn't the head, but rather his agent, and asks about the young prodigy that one might not see in 100 years is doing. Hugo smiles, saying that Vikir isn't that big of a deal, leaving the man disappointed on how his father acts when he just complimented his child. Adolf continues that the Morg clan also has a genius, a child named Camus, and tells her to come in. We see this young red-haired girl, and Adolf asks her to greet Hugo. But instead, she immediately accuses him of stealing the ruby mine and asks for it back. Adolf scrambles and tries to calm the situation, but Camus just snitches on all the stupid shit he was saying on the way here, even saying Hugo has a pathetic beard. Now that's too far. This ticks Hugo off, and Adolf quickly apologizes, but Camus doesn't relent, demanding that Hugo return the mine immediately. Hugo has had enough, and his aura flares up, telling the girl to stop. It seems the Morg clan doesn't teach manners to their children. All of a sudden, someone is heard coming into the room, and Vikir confidently strolls in, saying these pesky Morgs don't know when to quit, trying to take something that isn't theirs. Adolf notices his presence, but quickly turns to see Camus is not by his side, and she's already standing face to face with Vikir. Camus? This name rings a bell. This is the Morg clan's steel-blooded empress, but as a child. Even among archmages, her power was on another level. During her prime, she subjugated all the demons in the mountains by herself, and the technique in which she did gave her even more fame. Not to mention, she was also a beauty that manipulated politicians. However, this story is not for many years, and for now, she's just a rude 8-year-old. Vikir humbles her, telling her that she worked so hard getting all the way here, but just to throw a tantrum. Camus gets mad and asks him to say it again, which he does, and she charges up an ice spell. She's gonna explain it in a way that Vikir's dogshit brain can understand, and that's her words, not mine. She creates a replica of the ruby mine and surrounding area, and this impresses Vikir because he thought he was about to have to fight her or something. She points towards the ruby mine, explaining that its contents and where it's located between both territories. The problem is the entrance starts within Morg, but it travels well into Baskerville territory. But since the entrance is still in Morg territory, Camus believes it should belong to them. She says that these foolish Baskervilles just trespass and ignore their request to pay a lease to share the land. Adolf is impressed by his prodigy, but Vakir begins to speak. He asks if the rubies are used as a magical ingredient, and Baskervilles don't really have a use for it. But leasing the territory, no one in the Baskerville family is stupid enough to lease that mine for chump change. Camus protests that he just said they don't need the rubies, but Vakir argues that it's not about that, it's about the territory. Camus gets mad and tries to give an example and extends her arm past the Morg territory, asking who this arm belongs to now. Vakir grabs it, saying that now it's his, taking her off guard, and she blushes. She asks what this idiot means, but he clarifies. What he's really saying, and he grabs his dagger, is that her arm is mine, causing even Hugo to be alarmed to what his son is about to do. Camus cries for her uncle, and Adolf warns Vakir to step away now. He lets go of Camus and she runs into her uncle's arms. Hugo said that Vakir went too far with that joke, but he apologizes, saying jokes like that are common in the clan, and shows that the dagger was actually made of plastic. Adolf is shocked that there isn't even a toy like that, and Vakir bows his head, apologizing for his actions. He didn't intend to make her cry, but Baskerville children oftentimes play jokes like these. Hugo just laughs it off, and Adolf is being too serious for this kind of joke. Hugo says that he already has a solution that he thinks the Morg clan will like, but Camus just stares at Vakir. She won't let him get away with this. Some time passes, and now we're at the friendly competition between the two clans, and this is where upcoming stars from each family test their skills against each other. The practice spars between the 15-year-olds usually garner more attention due to their heightened skills. However, this year, all the attention was on two people, Camus and Vakir. They agreed to a spar, and the bell rings. Camus says she won't go easy on him and starts casting. She simultaneously casts 4 spells at one time, shocking some of the onlookers. Quadra casting? To think she mastered this caliber of spell so early is shocking. She unleashes all the projectiles at Vakir, but he just smiles, dodging them all. He comments that her spell sure was flashy, but if she wants to hit him, she's gonna have to try a little bit harder. Camus just scoffs, saying that Vakir doesn't know anything about magic, and casts Sand Wall to create some space between the two. Vakir easily breaks through this and asks her why she's calling him all of these rude names. Vakir charges in, and it seems Camus accepted her defeat. She cannot believe he broke through the wall so easily and closes her eyes, but sees Vakir standing right in front of her. He hits her with the world's strongest flick, sending her to the ground. She gets up, asking why he just did that. Is he going easy on her? Vakir teases her, saying that it should end this way before she gets seriously hurt, but Camus isn't finished. She casts a double sand wall and thinks no way he breaks through it this time. Vakir is just stumped, since he could easily just walk around it, but he'll play along. He smashes his hand through the walls and asks who she thinks this arm belongs to now, and flicks her again in the same spot, saying it always belongs to the stronger one. But Camus won't give up and starts hurling different spells at Vakir. He thought she should give up by now, but she sure is stubborn. Vakir could kill her in less than a second, but that would come with consequences. He dodges her attacks and thinks on a way to end this without an uproar. In these situations, the best thing he can do is use someone else, as he looks to a spar behind him. He sees 2 amateurs fighting and thinks that they will be perfect. As Camus runs at Vakir, demanding to know how she keeps missing, an amateur mage starts casting a spell, alerting Vakir to begin his plan. As he jumps back, he tells the poor little girl that she should cast a protection spell, and a huge explosion occurs, and Adolf is seen worried about his niece. Everyone thinks that Camus is burnt toast, and inside of all the smoke, she's actually alive and hears everyone's screams, but is embarrassed since the fire burnt off all of her clothes. What can she do? Once the smoke clears, everyone will see her like this and starts to cry. But Chad Vakir comes up and gives her his jacket, telling her to wear it. She starts screaming again, asking why he's acting like this. She's supposed to be his enemy. Vakir just laughs, saying if she doesn't want it, she could just give it back. And Camus starts to blush, thinking to herself that this guy really is weird, being nice to her all of a sudden. And she notices that his arm is bleeding. It seems that idiot swordman still had some aura in his sword before it broke, that caused a cut of this size. The smoke clears and Adolf is relieved to see Camus in one piece. And due to there being a cut on Vakir's arm and Camus being on the floor, no one can tell who won. And that's a little BS because Vakir was dominating the whole time, but let her have her flowers, I guess. Vakir was planning something like this all along, and people start commenting on the boy's physique. To be this built at 8 years old is unheard of. Some time passes and Hugo and Vakir are chatting while walking, and Hugo asks him about the duel. Vakir says it was fun and he now understands the meaning of the event. Hugo asks the boy why he went easy on Camus, but he just says he never fought a girl before, Hugo says that hesitation leads to injury. Take that wound as a lesson. This shocks Vakir. Is this the same man that he knew? Is he caring about him? Hugo asks what Vakir thinks about the ruby mine, which he responds saying it might be better to just give it to them. Hugo asks the reason, and the boy responds saying that the Baskervilles' current objective is to develop the wilds and widen the border. The ruby mine is in an opposite direction from the real threat to the family, the demonic creatures and barbarian clans. If they leverage this trade well, they can minimize the damage and not worry about both sides at once. Hugo smiles and agrees with this assessment. Once the Morg clan gets the rights to the mine, they will station many mages there to defend it, acting as a natural barrier to the Baskervilles' territory. Hugo is happy with this deal, and when the blood of those Morg clans stain the rubies they're trying so hard to defend, maybe then they will second guess their attempt to occupy it. Hugo pats Vakir on the head, saying his plan was about 90% similar to his, and that's only natural since Vakir was the one who was tasked with baiting the demons and barbarians to fight the Morg clan the first time around. As they are talking, they pass by Adolf and Camus yet again, and they ask for a conversation before they leave. The four sit and chat, and Adolf has one matter to discuss. They're open to many options in regard to this mine, and offer the first one being betrothal. The Morg clan thinks to join the two houses by marrying away Camus. Having children together will help strengthen both sides, and he is sure that she will be a good partner. Hugo says his eldest son is 25, and that's quite the age difference. Camus interjects that she doesn't want to marry someone weaker than her mother, but Adolf tells her to calm down. If she's persistent about that, she's going to be single forever. She asks for someone her age, but Hugo reminds her that this isn't a buffet. She says she knows someone and looks towards Vakir, shocking both men in the room. Adolf whispers in her ear that she can't do that. Vakir is only a half-breed, not a full-blood. But hearing these words enrage Hugo, and he interjects saying that the feelings of Vakir are important as well. He asks his son what he thinks he should do, and he just answers saying he will do anything he is ordered to. This answer shocks Adolf. Only if you're ordered to? How dare he be so insolent? This is the daughter of a direct lineage. Camus the whole time is secretly wondering if Vakir even likes her, and Hugo tells Adolf that the bloodline means nothing in the Baskerville families. Sometimes purebloods produce inferior children, and sometimes it's the other way around. Adolf tries to argue, but Vakir sizes him up. He's a 6th circle master, an extremely strong man who's in the upper echelon of magicians, but has a weakness as an overly affectionate uncle. Adolf goes closer to Vakir, letting him know that just because he's a little talented, it isn't enough to be Camus's husband. Vakir just thinks to himself that this was all their idea, and honestly, you're still not going to find anyone better than him in the entire clan. Adolf puts his hands on Vakir, but immediately questions why the hell he's so sturdy, and asks the boy to answer his question. Vakir says he stopped listening to Adolf since he wasn't speaking to him, and Camus is shocked that Vakir can be so bold. Adolf just laughs and asks Hugo if they can have a little one-on-one chat with Vakir. Hugo thinks it's a little much, but allows it, despite Camus's protest. But Adolf just quiets her down as well, saying it's time to let the grown-ups do the talking. We shift to the dueling grounds, and Adolf will test Vakir. Vakir understands and knows that if he shows his true skill, Adolf would probably pass out. All the while, the man proposes a handicap. He prepares a jar full of water and tells Vakir that he will fight with this balanced on top of his head. If Vakir can make him spill a single drop, then he will be the victor. Vakir smiles at an excellent opportunity that this is, and in his past life, he may have had a 50% chance to assassinate him, and maybe 10% fighting him head on. But now, he doesn't need to fight at full strength, just enough to entertain Hugo. He dashes in and Camus is worried, and Adolf prepares a water barrier that stops Vakir's assault. Vakir steps back, and dealing with his shield is tough without strong aura. Adolf prepares a fire spell, wondering if it's his turn now, and fires 4 projectiles at the boy. Camus screams at him since she thinks this is too much. He didn't even use this magic when they were sparring. Hugo overlooks the battle and knows that Adolf is going easy on Vakir, so he won't have to jump in. Vakir wonders if this is all of the old man's spells, and taking into consideration all of his skill and experience in this situation, it's very possible that in this battle, Vakir could kill this man after baiting him to let his guard down. Vakir keeps charging at the barrier, and Adolf laughs at him. But as Vakir continues his assault, Adolf is noticing that he's hitting the same exact spot over and over again, almost like a machine. He admires his focus, however, his sword is taking incredible damage, and with the last slash, it breaks. Adolf laughs that what Vakir is doing is no different to throwing eggs at a stone wall, and tells the boy to take better care of his sword. He keeps rambling on, but all of a sudden, water drips from the bowl, completely shocking Adolf. The broken piece from the sword actually pierced the jar, thus ending the duel. Chad Vakir says that he can continue, and even Camus starts admiring the young boy, and wonders if now they will be married. Hugo thinks to himself that his son might be more sly than he ever imagined. We time skip to about 7 years later, and we're at the Baskerville training facility. A huge horned beast appears and it roars at all the incoming students. They are unfazed and ready to pounce, to end this creature's life. The students begin the fierce battle, and the guide dog, Staffordshire, is the instructor. He tells his cadets that if they face an enemy stronger than them, the best thing they can do is run away. But if they do have to face strong opponents, don't rush in and only target vital spots. Focus on extremities to slow their movements. The triplets seem to have their swagger back, and they use the combined aura attack, crippling the monster. The rest of the cadets jump in to finish the deal. They finish, and the instructor informs the group that they are now low-rank sword experts, and their 7-year-long training is complete. He reminds them that the monsters they face in the wild won't be caged and starved, and will be a lot more dangerous and difficult to overcome. Death is always looming, but Baskervilles will always triumph. He congratulates the cadets on their graduation, and they all sit down and start conversing on which knight order that they will join. But all the focus is still on one soul, Vakir. Where will he go? As we see him sit atop a beast that the others had to group up on. He killed an ox bear even bigger than the cadets all by himself. Rumor has it he is a high-ranked sword expert and can draw the third fang. But Vakir just thinks to himself that currently he's a medium-rank graduator and on the 5th fang, and it took him 7 years just to get from low rank to medium rank. He's already stronger than his past life, but he's growing much slower than he anticipated. Barrymore approaches and tells the young master that his father is looking for him. Vakir greets his aged father and asks how he got that scar on his nose. Hugo admits that he got it in a fight with the barbarian tribe on the mountain, and he was attacked by one skilled with the bow. Switching the topic, he congratulates Vakir on his graduation, but he has found him a post. In his past life, at this point, Vakir was sent to be an apprentice for the Pitbull Knights, and was sent deep into the mountain for 2 years, facing death almost every day, like a useless dog meant to be tossed away. The children of Baskerville are divided into elites and expendables when reaching the age of 15, and what they learn is quite different. Elites are taught politics and move into administrative roles, and expendables are used in battle until they break. And the only thing that creates this gap between the two sides is the 5th technique. Expendables are only allowed to learn up until the 4th. Vakir thinks to himself that no way Hugo would allow him to take the elite course as an illegitimate child, but is shocked to hear that Hugo wants him to try to be a congressman. It seems Vakir is going to be an elite despite what he thought. Hugo explains his responsibility, and he's basically putting Vakir in charge of a small territory. Vakir is taken aback. Is Hugo really letting an illegitimate child have this much responsibility at 15? Hugo says that that should be natural with Vakir's achievements. It launched him far ahead of all the other so-called geniuses, and as such he's going to get the appropriate treatment. He'll be in charge of a city called Underdog, and asks if Vakir accepts his new role. Vakir says he'll do anything he's ordered to, but has one question. What about the ruby mine situation? It seems Hugo promised the boy a reward, and he's cashing it in now. He asks to borrow something that we don't get to hear at the moment, but we can see Barrymore's startled reaction. Vakir says if it's a big problem, he can always pick something else, but Hugo just slams down his stamp saying it's fine with him. He trusts Vakir to use it with good judgment, and calls him his son. Vakir is conflicted. No matter how many times he receives affection from this man, he cannot erase the hatred that he has for him. Barrymore is walking with Vakir to his reward, but stops to tell him that Hugo has a lot of appreciation for him, and wanted to make use of his talents, and not send him into battle right away. But Vakir doesn't feel that way. He's only loved if he can fulfill his job. But he does like the situation he's put in. He can leverage his post to increase his power, and train without having to hide his real skills. And no matter what gifts he receives in this life, he will treat Hugo to the gift of death. We arrive at the Baskerville territory, Underdog, and we have a bald man ordering around some attendants to have this place squeaky clean for the arrival of Vakir. The attendants nervously do their jobs, but wonder what kind of master they will have. The other guy jokes that it's only a kid and he's 15, so what can they really expect from him? But all of a sudden, Vakir walks in. The attendant asks who he is, and he can't just walk in here like that, but is met with a cold stare, asking him to remove his hand. And it shows these two morons that he is the new deputy counsel. They play it off nervously, but Vakir tells them that he's throwing a party. Prepare some women and drinks. A party? Some time passes and they ended up throwing that party, and it looks pretty lit, and we're introduced to Chihuahua Baskerville, great name, and he is a general secretary of Underdog, and is very upset on what he is seeing. Throwing a party on the first day? How irresponsible. His job was already hard enough, and all the previous consuls were corrupt and accepted bribes. He assumes Vakir will not be any better. But all of a sudden, Vakir appears right behind him, and he does do a good job of appearing right behind someone while they're talking shit. Vakir introduces himself, and Chihuahua does as well. but he is from outside the family and is afraid he will be discriminated against by Vakir. But the boy just pats him on the shoulder and says it's nice to meet him. He did some research and he knows that Chihuahua has lived here for a long time and knows a lot about the city. Vakir knows how hard he must work and doesn't plan on messing with him or how he works, but he trusts that he will do a good job. Chihuahua just assumes that this is some form of new harassment and wonders why Vakir is with him and not in the party that he just threw. Vakir closes the book that he was skimming through and says the laws around here are very strange, especially the judicial system. Chihuahua is shocked that the boy already read through the town's laws already, but Vakir states that the problem with Underdog is that there's too many illegal businesses that are successful. The underground holds a power that's above the law, and just stopping their business won't be enough. The heads of the underground need to be removed. The job Vakir has is to make laws and execute them, but he already has one that he wants to introduce, and he will ruin this underground economy in less than a week. He cannot just toss around laws as a 15-year-old, so he needs to make a performance. And as Vakir says it, he needs to lay out poop for the flies. Chihuahua is confused, but we time skip to the next day, in Underdog's downtown street. Vakir stands in front of a board and begins to speak in front of a large crowd. They don't seem to take him seriously, and he starts referring to the laws that are written behind him. They've been in place for a while, and even though the deputy has changed, the laws are still strict. The crowd begins to mock the boy that laws don't mean much in this town to begin with, and Chihuahua is enraged at its disrespect. But Vakir stands defiantly and launches a pole into the ground. This shocks everyone. He announces a new rule as a new deputy. He will award 100 million gold to whoever can remove this stake, and the whole town is in an uproar. The citizens are all confused. Can he really pay that much? But Vakir ups the ante and increases the reward to 1 billion. Some of the citizens get mad, telling Vakir to grow up. This isn't the sort of money he can throw on a limb. Vakir is uninterested and increases the bounty again to 10 billion, yet no one dares to pull the pole, still speculating if it's really a gimmick. They think Vakir might execute them for trying to be greedy, but they're still intrigued on the pole. It looks ready to come out. But all of a sudden, a little girl with a flower basket asks if she can try. An older man tells her not to butt in and she might be killed. The little girl has a sick mother. She needs to try anything she can to help. She begs the man to take care of her if anything happens and approaches Vakir, worried on what he might do, and he simply asks her to pull it out. She does so very easily and everyone is confused. Vakir's aura spikes and the girl thinks she's about to die, apologizing to her mother. But Vakir just hands her 100 million gold. He asks for her address. It's gonna be a lot of gold and they'll need to send it directly to her house, and just pats her on the head. He tells everyone that this is the law and the law must be obeyed. This performance grew more known than the laws before, and this simple logic of following the rules touched the hearts of all the citizens. And they think that they finally have a good deputy. He will create a society where principles are upheld. Vakir is conversing with Chihuahua back in his office, and the man is impressed with the young lord's performance and vows to follow him for the rest of his life, and says he can rest easy now since he is the new deputy. This was actually something Vakir stole from Camus in his previous life. She was ruling over a province once and the crime rate was less than 1%. But this is only the beginning. He stretches out a map of the city. They use so much money as a reward, so they're gonna need to get it back. He marks some spots where potential illegal activities are being held. They're gonna need to swoop in and steal the dirty money. Chihuahua is confused on how Vakir knows where these spots are, but he just says that he can smell them, and the old man is impressed. But another guy walks in saying that the village's Youth Autonomy Association has requested a meeting. Chihuahua explains that this group is made of children from prominent clans, and in reality, it's just a glorified social club that takes advantage of the city. Vakir smiles that his bait has worked, and now he thinks he can start eradicating the pests from his city.
And that's how the first part of this manhwa ends. Well guys, if you like this video and you want a second part, comment below with the word part 2. Also subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell and like the video. But most important, leave a comment. Until the next video.